Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
I'm close. When people are against the Illuminati, they get punched in the face all the time. The press hates them, and nobody likes them.
Cat Williams. Did he break the internet? His name is Prophet Williams. Prophet Cat Williams. He's a prophet.
There isn't anything funnier than a guy in a dress. And if that's the case, then it might also be said that there's nothing funnier than a in a dress. Picking on poor little Kevin Hart because it was his turn next.
Hart says that the other version of myself died in that moment. That was his quote.
I have a call. Cat's out the bag. Okay? It's about a good 3 of me. They didn't want to release it yet. This is major news that I'm giving you.
All right.
I'm the first person to ever use it. That's why I'm able to do all that I do.
Well, as one of the main opponents of the Illuminati, I always wanted to know what information they had that we didn't. Some of us are against the Illuminati, and we are against the Illuminati at our own detriment. I don't really know how to complain because all of the people that I ever looked up to had to go through it too.
I wonder how many examples there are of male actors blowing up after wearing a dress on TV. Also, how many actors have gone through this and then not gotten their big break? If we had that data, I feel like it'd be a little easier to point to this as a definitive initiation ritual. Personally, though, I've seen enough to be convinced.
Wouldn't it be crazy if they found 2.34 billion tons of neodymium in Wyoming? You know, a magnetic mineral which is pretty vital to computer technologies. Wouldn't it be crazy if Chariot Mining just found the first hard lithium deposits in Wyoming in the last month or so? Wouldn't it be crazy that while all these hurricanes are going on, there is a massive wildfire engulfing the mountains of Wyoming right now, which has burned over 78,000 acres? Wouldn't it be crazy if the media appears to be just ignoring the fact that there's this massive fire in Wyoming? Wouldn't it be crazy if Chariot's stock price has gone up nearly 40% in the last month? Wouldn't it be crazy if these massive fires are only 45 minutes away from Black Mountain, the main project of Chariot Mining Company? That would be crazy. Yeah.
What would be even crazier is if we saw someone in the government actually investigate this. What's with the sudden land grabs everywhere? It seems like there's almost nowhere safe to live anymore. Even if you don't live somewhere where there's natural disasters, wildfires are going to engulf everything around you the moment that they discover there's something of value beneath your feet. Hey, if you're enjoying this video and you like this type of content, I post a new one just like it every day, Monday through Friday. It'd be awesome if you'd hit that subscribe button and come back tomorrow to join me. Also, don't forget to check out my merch store at berry-stepp.com.
What was crazy about the congressional hearing, they all talked about they came from the ocean. They said they're interdimensional, but a lot of them are observed coming up from the ocean.
They were talking about how fast these things were coming out of the water.
The human body is able to withstand, I think, up to 9 Gs. A lot of these vehicles are observed going 2,000 to 3,000 Gs. No human body can withstand that. Obviously, you turn into mush. And it could be a pretty far-fetched connection, but I thought it was pretty interesting. Remember when Jesus cast out those demons, it said, "I'm legion,"
into the
to the pigs
off the cliff.
It said, like, just don't let our spirits wander. Like, throw us into something. Like, put us into this herd of pigs. And then
they had a plan.
They went into the pigs. The demon-possessed pigs ran into the ocean.
Oh, I don't know, man.
It's weird.
Dude, that's terrifying.
That's a really interesting theory. I already highly suspect that these things are either demons or interdimensional beings, not aliens from another planet. So this is not that far of a stretch for me. My only hesitation in buying into this theory is that I feel like they've been around a lot longer than that. I think evidence shows that they were here before the time of Jesus.
So I came across this person's video last night about the shooter, and he has a countdown on a YouTube, and if you're seeing this, I'm already under arrest. And the countdown is to the 11th. And the funny thing is that when you go to his YouTube, it's been taken down. But people were uploading things after this. Let me just say, even Cat Dad thinks that this is an FED situation. Because you have to ask yourself certain questions. Logical, critical thinking questions. Like, come on. Who writes words on a bullet? When do the cops give you key evidence to an ongoing investigation the day of? Like, ever. And now this guy, Luigi, his name is, like, y'all have heard of crisis actors, right? Y'all have heard of that, right? This will disappear like You won't see no trial of it. Trust me, you will not see a trial. And you will hear about his sentencing. This guy, I truly believe, like Cat Dad said, works for a 3-letter agency. And we are being herded. We're being guided like a herd for a certain agenda. Do y'all know what that agenda is? It's crazy. 3 words they said was on the bullet, right? Wasn't there 3 words also in the France Revolution? Also, haven't the people taken over Syria? Yeah, no one's talking about that. Syria? And me reporting on Syria, what the news put out, they took my video down for community guidelines. The news, so you know I'm a targeted person already. Speaking on this, please don't fall for the hype. Please know what the end game is. Please know and use your critical thinking skills and not fall into your cognitive dissonance. Ask questions. What is going to come out on the 11th? And how is it going to come out? How are we going to be able to find it since his YouTube has been taken down as soon as he got arrested? Why would he leave this cryptic countdown that went to 0 and said more to come on the 11th? Things that make you say, do you think it's maybe hurting us toward revolution? Like Syria? Like France? Message! Tell me if you haven't made it apparent, or they haven't made it apparent, that their reach, the government's reach, is really overreach, and they want us to react. Tell me I'm bugging.
I want to be very careful on this topic because it's an ongoing investigation. I don't know all the details of everything yet because they haven't all come out, but I will say this. Something about this story does not add up. There's just a lot here that does not make sense to me. Even the photos that they gave us of the supposed suspect doesn't look like the same guy on the security footage. I don't know what to think yet, but something feels really off about this whole situation.
Hey Winnipeggers, just in case you are wondering what this is, I don't know, it came out of my garden hose in the backyard. It's totally a worm. It's alive. It's in the water I drink. I'm totally grossed out.
Well, I'll never drink out of the water hose again for the rest of my entire life.
Tartaria was everywhere, and history as we know it has been completely fabricated. At first we thought maybe the Dark Ages were just unclear, but it turns out they were invented to push a lot of events further into the past. We realized that it wasn't just small parts of history that might be wrong, everything was made up. One fascinating thing is the architecture we find around the world. In almost every city you'll find ancient Gothic-style buildings with incredibly intricate designs. People look at them and say, oh, that's just how they built things back then, but some of these buildings are absolutely stunning. Think about it, if we lived in a feudal society where everyone was working just to survive, how would anyone have had the time, resources, or motivation to build something so elaborate and that worked the way they did? These buildings weren't just practical structures like free energy generators, they were artistic expressions. They were built to be functional and beautiful, to celebrate what was being created. But we don't build like that anymore. The complexity and beauty of these structures are clues that we didn't live in the same pay-to-survive system we're trapped in now. Tartaria was a global civilization incredibly advanced and powered by free energy, likely based on etheric energy. It existed up until about 200 or 250 years ago. Estimates place its early origins around the mid-17th century, and its destruction came shortly after. They've been lying to you all along.
So it's pretty much agreed upon in most conspiracy circles that there was a big chunk of our past erased from history. What if we had advanced 200 years into a technology that the powers that be no longer wanted us to have? And the only way to erase it and start over was to erase everything that had led up to the invention of that technology. That's the only way that something like that could be suppressed, is to make sure it was never studied to begin with.
So it might just be me, but I feel like we're gonna get news on these aliens really soon. They're just rolling out a red carpet for us with all these little bits of info that are progressively getting crazier. I work at an old person's home, and these guys will not shut up about saucers. That's not normal. That is not a conversation topic for old people. These guys don't believe anything that isn't on the news, and it's all over the news. They keep asking me questions about it because they know about my channel. I mean, we have drones swarming military bases the last 17 days. The FAA can turn off drones and we can jam them. So either there's a new technology that's surpassing that, or they're not human made. Now, with all that being said, let me introduce you to Project Kona Blue, a recently declassified Homeland Security project from 2011. It was just declassified a few months ago. Now, in this document, it talks about remote viewing and building countermeasures for it, but that's not important. We came to talk about the Medical Center, which is studying physiological and psychological effects for interaction with these saucers. It is affecting people and their families. Now, with all that being said, we're going to talk about the couple and their dog who made UFO abductions famous, Barney and Betty Hill. Now, this happened a long time ago, and it's always going to be up for speculation. A lot of people are skeptical of this, and I don't blame them. You should be. I am, but it's still interesting. Now, their story is very fragmented. This messed with their memory, and they did a lot of hypnotherapy when they were being investigated for if this really happened or not to try to find some semblance of the truth. So I'm going to tell it in order of what we know, not in order of what they experienced. Otherwise, it is very confusing. Also, Wikipedia has it if you'd rather read it. But Barney and Betty are driving. They're at a scenic overlook walking their dog, and they see a shooting star. But this isn't a normal shooting star. This thing's moving left and right and up and down. They watched it cross over the face of the moon. They pull out binoculars, they're looking at it, and they realize that is not an airplane. But like anyone else, you see something weird in the sky. What do you do next? Nothing. There's nothing you can do, so you just decide to go home and wonder what you just saw. So they're driving home, but this saucer stops right above their car, like 80 feet above their car, and they don't know what to do. They're freaking out. He said you look through the windshield, all you saw was a pancake-shaped object that was just hovering and made no noise. And this man stayed strapped, so he got out ready to protect his wife, and he sees these humanoid figures looking at him through the glass, and he got a message in his head, which sounds really weird, but we're gonna go with it. And they just told him, do not be afraid and keep looking at us. They then both heard a weird buzzing noise, and this is where their memories became very fragmented. Now, through hypnotherapy, they both had very consistent stories. They did this at the same time in different rooms, came out with the same story, no time to talk about it beforehand or after. Now, according to the hypnotherapy session, what had happened was he felt extremely compelled to get back in the car and drive into the woods. It sounds weird, and that's exactly what he did. And they saw some short-ish humanoid-looking figures, black caps, shiny little metal suits, whole 9 yards. Now, as they're driving through the woods and they see these humanoid figures, the car immediately stalls, and these things just look straight into their eyes, and they both said it was terrifying, yet mesmerizing. In his hypnotherapy account, he said, "Oh my god, the eyes. There are eyes everywhere. All I see is eyes. I'm not even afraid, but they're pressing up against my own eyes." Really weird stuff. He then said, "Now they're in my brain. I don't know what to do. So, take it as you will." Now, like I said, it's a very fragmented story. We don't have much more info than that. She said she briefly remembers something communicating with her, what she thought was their leader, but it was mumbling in a language that she could not understand. He also saw really weird red markings on some of their doors and felt very compelled to check out his Johnson to make sure it was all right. It was totally okay. So they get home, they shower to decontaminate themselves, they start writing stuff down, drawing pictures, doing anything they can remember, and that strange buzzing sound hits one more time. And their memory got jumbled from there. When this story came out, there was no info, and these hypnotherapy sessions are what brought the info. 90% of that story came from their hypnotherapy. They didn't remember a thing. Now, why could this be credible? Well, it's really not unless you believe two strangers, but the one thing this has going for it is this is the first case of this happening. And every other UFO abduction you hear about is somewhat modeled after them, which makes it a load of bull or the truth, and we'll never know until the government tells us. Don't believe anything I say just because I say it. Do your own research, make your own facts, and I love you guys. Thank you.
What do you all think about the Betty and Barney Hill story? I've always found it interesting, but kind of hard to believe. I don't see where they had anything to gain by making the story up. It likely destroyed their lives. But something about their story just sounds like they're making it up. I can't point to anything specifically. It's just a feeling that I have, and I totally believe there have been abductions before. It's just something about this story feels off.
The first video that ever went viral for me was when I was talking about Drew the Prophet. If you don't already know Drew, he up and left his home in Atlanta to go to California for a few months because he said that God came to him in a dream and told him that he needed to go and warn the people of California about San Andreas. He spent months knocking doors and standing in public with signs and everything like that, just with the goal of getting people out of California. People gave me so much flack for supporting him and agreeing that they should evacuate, and I know Drew gets a ton of flack, and he's just being obedient to God. They just had a 7.0 earthquake and a bunch of smaller ones. Even though that's a big deal, that's devastating, I don't think that they're done yet. I very much think that we will see San Andreas very soon, within the next few years maximum, especially being that they just got a 7.0, which is pretty rare. It happens about once every 20 years. I do hope for everybody's safety, but I have a feeling, I don't think that it was the 7.0 that God was warning him about. People discredit him by saying he's just some guy on TikTok. Like, what do you expect him to be? If you discredit Drew, you should probably read your Bible. God works through just everyday people. You're not going to turn on the TV and have your local newscaster telling you that God's sending you a sign. I'm not saying that everybody who says that they had a dream or that they had a prophecy told to them is accurate, but the original video was me saying that my discernment with him was popping off, and a lot of people felt the exact same way. This is for entertainment purposes only.
I actually had quite a different take when I first heard of the guy. I think it's kind of obvious, for one, that they're long overdue for an earthquake in California. I just couldn't see at the time how one guy on foot could be that effective at warning anybody. But it was pointed out to me by a viewer that I was using my platform to share this guy's message by talking about it. So his word is getting out via social media. I still find it hard to believe that this guy's a direct messenger from God, but I could absolutely be wrong.
So I recently did a video about the double slit experiment that went super viral. This is a part of my series, Are We Living in a Simulated Reality? And we approach the experiment from that lens. Allow me to show you why this theory has not been disproven, and Neil deGrasse Tyson actually says it's a 50-50 whether we're living in a simulated reality. So in 2022, these three physicists won the Nobel Prize for showing us that the universe is crazier than we ever expected. So the three physicists are Elaine Aspect, John Clauser, and Anton Ziegler. And they essentially confirmed a bizarre prediction of quantum mechanics that is quantum entanglement. Entanglement is fascinating. It is when two particles become so deeply linked that no matter what the distance is, they instantly impact each other. This is something that Einstein referred to as spooky action at a distance. You see, Einstein had a theory that nothing can travel faster than light. Or so he thought. Entanglement shows that that is not true. Let me give you an example. Let's imagine you have two balls. Neither ball has a color, but when observed, one ball is black and the other ball is white. So you put them both in boxes, you send one to the moon and you keep one here on Earth. In the box, neither ball has a color. They exist in a state of maybe black, maybe white. When you open the box on Earth, it forces them to pick a color. As you observe one, it chooses black. Instantaneously, the ball on the moon will be white. No matter what the distance, instantly that color is displayed. So John Clauser ran the first experiment, and he found that quantum mechanics was correct, that a particle does not decide its state until it's measured. This is something that always comes up with the double slit experiment, essentially that the observation tool causes the photons to collapse from wave to particle because it interferes. This just fits what John Clauser proved. Particles don't decide their states until measured. Elaine Aspect took this a step further with a twist. He wanted to make sure that the measurement couldn't be influenced by hidden signals. He proved particles can't cheat by knowing how they'd be measured ahead of time. And finally, Ziegler took it another step further. He showed that entanglement can be used for quantum teleportation, moving information instantaneously across space that we could use for like quantum computing, cryptography. Okay, so why is this important? Well, these experiments proved that reality isn't local. Locality means that objects are only directly influenced by their immediate surroundings. If you push a domino, it falls over. The key principle of locality is that information, signals, and interactions cannot travel faster than the speed of light. Non-locality simply establishes that there's interconnected systems like we see with quantum entanglement, where instantaneous information can be exchanged faster than the speed of light because it's instantaneous. So why could this potentially mean that we live in a simulated or holographic reality? Number one, simulated reality just means that this isn't the one true reality. It's not base reality. And in a simulation, reality as we perceive it is just data. Non-locality supports the notion that space and time are just properties of a simulation and not necessarily fundamental to existence. So if the universe operates as a simulation, what we perceive as distance could simply be a visual construct, with information underlying everything at a deeper non-local level. Holographic reality is simply that information is encoded on a lower dimensional level. We experience that information as a projection. So if everything we see is just a projection from a 2D surface, entanglement of particles could simply be from a shared origin. The instantaneous connection isn't happening at the holographic 3D space, but in the deeper unified layer of reality. But going back to the original question, no theory has been disproven. Anyone that says so doesn't know, because there's more that we don't know than there is that we do know. Space and time could be illusions created for our perception. There's actually a lot of evidence for that. The true nature of reality might be more informational than it is physical. The interconnectedness that we are seeing in quantum mechanics could be the result of a unified underlying system, whether it be a simulation or a holographic reality. Spooky action at a distance, man. But I need you guys to remember this: quantum entanglement and the instantaneous sharing of information. Because I've got some videos coming up that are gonna freaking blow your minds.
So if information can move in an instantaneous nature, clearly faster than light, then the information would have had to exist in that location already. So the information is everywhere. We aren't sending it from one place to another, but accessing it in another location via a tool of measurement. The only thing I can think of that could explain that is that we live in a simulated environment, or our base reality is made out of computer code, and that makes zero sense.
You'll find many banks, post offices, government centers, especially 100 years ago, were facilitated in these large, glorious stone structures. The paradigm that man is nothing but a carnivorous monkey in outer space, floating on a rock for no reason, in the middle of nowhere by accident. And this all got kicked off 43 bajillion years ago on a Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m. And they can determine this with their color star charts and moon dust and things like that, and just surviving by instinct, on par with an animal. Justification for any morals, ethics, no real pursuit of true happiness, no pursuit of harmony and understanding here on the earth. There's no spiritual accountability. There's no understanding of beauty. Well, on the other alternative, on this side, we have a purposeful creation, a purposeful design to not only the human being, but the entire earth, the laws of nature. No theories, only laws ingrained into existence, woven into the fabric of reality by the designer, the creator, not in a linear sense, not, back then, this many years ago or that. It doesn't work that way. This is the fabric of what we live in. There is a value placed on beauty. Why? Because God has a beautiful creation. In order to return the favor, mankind has an impulse to create beautiful things, to not only value beauty, to seek it out, to place a high emphasis on it. This is how the ancients maintained their ways of life. Metric, proportional laws of beauty.
We're sold the story that these are alleged temporary buildings, all being built in record-breaking time for the purpose of a worldly gathering, a gathering to showcase new technology, or perhaps just taking credit for the old. With so many lights on display, one would only assume that power plants and electrical resources such as wiring and even electricians were widely available. However, during this time period, that wasn't the case at all. Therefore, how were these vast areas in the late 1800s able to light the evening sky? Like a modern-day theme park? Or was there a different method for harvesting energy? Now ask yourself, what part of these magnificent buildings look temporary? And most importantly, what part of these buildings look new? Or you can just believe these guys.
It was all brand new. This is what they tell us. Meant to be temporary. So they used plaster of Paris and wood and all these other structures. And if you look at the pictures, that's not what you see. Massive masonry structures that look like what you see in Europe. They had these places like Chicago, Omaha, Portland, Seattle, Guatemala. They had them in Tasmania,
Georgia, Louisiana, Ohio, Canada.
Each one was magically populated by millions of people that came from all over the realm to participate in this event.
So what they tell us in 9 months, from the moment they conceived of it to when it was built, it was 9 months of getting it all together. It was gigantic plate glass structure with fountains and trains, and that in the 1930s, that burned down. So you show pictures of this Crystal Palace structure, which is massive. We have to move that, no problem. Oops, it burned down. Typically what happened to a lot of these World's Fair structures.
You can erase it from history. People don't see it as a potential future. And I think that in itself is, for me, the moral of hiding history, about hiding the old world.
Take existing infrastructure, build some little bullshit around it, and then when you're finished with your so-called fair, it gives you an excuse to tear everything down and nobody questions you.
That last guy there makes a good point. They very well could have been using the cover story of the fair and the temporary structures that they built to go along with it to tear down buildings that had been there for many, many years. I'm certain they've erased a part of our history. The more I look into this, the less I'm convinced by the plaster of Paris temporary structure stories. I know I've said in the past that made sense, but the more evidence I see, the more I disagree with myself. But guys and gals, I'm going to go ahead and end the video right there. I hope you enjoyed these clips we watched together today. I'll be back tomorrow with another video. I hope you come back to join me. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my merch store at berry-stepp.com. Order yourself a shirt, a hat, or a hoodie. And don't forget to leave a photo of your merch over in the Discord to get your photo in a video. But with all that out of the way, I hope everyone has a great, safe, fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.